How I helped my sibling with homework. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you became the unexpected hero in someone else's story? Where a simple yes changed everything? That's exactly what happened to me when I agreed to help my little sister with her homework. What started as a simple favor turned into an unforgettable adventure, filled with laughs, tears, and incredible life lessons. If you're ready for a story that will make you smile, touch your heart, and maybe even inspire you to be someone's hero, then hit that subscribe button now and join our story-driven English community. Let's dive into this remarkable journey together. Alex. Alex, I need your help right now. The high-pitched voice of my 12-year-old sister Emily echoed through the house. I was sprawled on my bed, deeply engrossed in a novel I'd been trying to finish for weeks. The weekend had finally arrived, and all I wanted was some peace and quiet. "What is it?" I called back, not bothering to hide the annoyance in my voice. When there was no immediate response, I sighed and placed my bookmark between the pages. Just as I was about to return to my reading, I heard the sound of footsteps racing up the stairs. Emily burst into my room without knocking, something she had been doing since she was 5. Her curly brown hair was messier than usual, and her glasses sat crookedly on her nose. In her arms, she clutched a stack of papers and textbooks that looked too heavy for her small frame. "I have this massive homework assignment due on Monday," she explained, dropping everything onto my bed. "And I don't understand any of it." Her bottom lip quivered slightly, a clear sign that tears weren't far behind. I glanced at my novel longingly, then back at my sister's desperate face. I've got plans," I said, gesturing to my book. "Please, Alex," she pleaded, clasping her hands together dramatically. "I'll do anything. I'll clean your room for a week. I'll stop singing in the shower. I'll even stop telling Mom when you sneak out at night to meet your friends." I raised an eyebrow at her last offer. "How do you know about that?" She gave me a smug smile. "I know everything. Now, will you help me?" I knew I was fighting a losing battle. Emily had mastered the art of persuasion long before she could tie her shoelaces. Besides, there was something in her expression, a mixture of genuine worry and trust that I could actually help her, that made it impossible to say no. "Fine," I surrendered, setting my book aside. "But you owe me big time." Her face lit up instantly. "You're the best big brother ever." She threw her arms around me in a quick hug that almost knocked me over. Yeah, I muttered, trying to sound annoyed even though her happiness was slightly contagious. "What's this massive assignment anyway?" Emily began spreading papers across my bed, explaining that she had to complete a project about ecosystems. It involved research, a written report, and a model. The deadline was Monday, and she hadn't even started yet. Typical Emily. "Why did you wait until the weekend to start this?" I asked, flipping through her assignment papers. She avoided my eyes. "I thought it would be easy," she admitted. "But then I started reading about ecosystems, and there's so much information and I don't know what's important. And then I got distracted watching videos about pandas, which actually live in ecosystems. So technically I was doing research, but then, okay, I get it." I interrupted her rambling. Emily had always been easily distracted. It was both her charm and her greatest academic challenge. "Let's make a plan," I cleared some space on my desk and pulled up another chair. The next few hours were spent organizing her thoughts, finding reliable sources, and breaking down the complex science into something she could understand. Emily was smart, incredibly smart, but she needed someone to help her focus and structure her ideas. "So, an ecosystem is like a neighborhood?" she asked, trying to grasp the concept. "Kind of," I replied. "Think of it as a community where plants, animals, and even tiny organisms that you can't see all live together. And just like in a neighborhood, everyone has a job to do." Her eyes widened with understanding, like Mrs. Peterson who runs the bakery, and Mr. Lee who fixes cars, and you who does nothing but read books all day. I flicked her ear lightly. "I do more than read books, you little monster. But yes, that's the general idea. In an ecosystem, some plants make food from sunlight. Some animals eat those plants. Other animals eat those animals, and some break down dead stuff to recycle it back into the soil. Circle of life," she exclaimed, making a dramatic sweeping gesture with her arm that sent papers flying off the desk. As we gathered the scattered papers, I couldn't help but smile. Teaching Emily was actually kind of fun. She asked questions I would never think of, and made connections that were surprisingly insightful. By the end of the afternoon, we had outlined her paper and created a detailed plan for her ecosystem model. "We should build a rainforest diorama," I suggested, getting caught up in the project myself. Emily wrinkled her nose. "That's boring. Everyone does rainforests or deserts. I want to do something different." "Like what?" I asked, curious about what my creative little sister had in mind. "What about an ocean ecosystem?" she proposed. "With coral reefs and those fish that have lights on their heads to attract prey in the dark depths?" I was impressed. "Anglerfish. That's actually a cool idea, but it might be complicated to build." Emily's face fell. "We can just do a rainforest?" "It's easier." Something about her disappointed expression made me determined to help her create exactly what she envisioned. "No way, we're doing the ocean ecosystem. It'll be awesome." Her smile returned, bigger than before. "Really? You mean it?" "Absolutely. But we'll need supplies." Before I knew what was happening, I was driving Emily to the craft store, listening to her chatter excitedly about bioluminescent creatures and coral reef conservation. The small craft store in our town didn't have everything we needed, so we ended up driving to 3 different places. By the time we returned home, the back seat of my car was filled with blue cellophane, clay, paint, glue, and various other materials that I wasn't entirely sure how to use. "Mom's going to kill us if we make a mess," I warned as we carried everything into the living room. Emily waved away my concern. "Mom's at Aunt Lisa's for the day, remember? She won't be back until dinner time. We'll clean up before she gets home." We cleared the coffee table and spread newspapers across the floor. Emily had sketched a rough design of what she wanted the model to look like, and I was surprised by how detailed it was. The girl definitely had artistic talent. "Where should we start?" I asked, feeling slightly overwhelmed by all the supplies. Emily picked up a shoebox. "First, we need to create the base of the ocean." For the next several hours, we worked side by side, transforming simple craft materials into a miniature underwater world. Emily painted the inside of the box with shades of blue to represent the different depths of the ocean, while I molded clay into rock formations and coral shapes. "Pass me the glitter," Emily said, reaching out her hand without looking up from her work. I passed her the small container. What's the glitter for? I don't think oceans are naturally sparkly. It's for the bioluminescent plankton, she explained as if it were obvious. They make the water glow at night. Right, I nodded, pretending I knew that all along. We were so absorbed in our work that we didn't notice the time slipping by. Creating the model was surprisingly enjoyable. I hadn't done anything this creative since elementary school art class, and I'd forgotten how satisfying it was to make something with my hands. Alex, look. Emily held up a small clay fish she had painted with glow-in-the-dark paint. It's an anglerfish. See the little light dangling in front of its face? The fish was actually pretty impressive, especially considering it was made by a 12-year-old. That's amazing, Em. You're really good at this. She beamed at the compliment. I want to be a marine biologist when I grow up, she confessed. Or maybe an artist, or maybe both. I could draw illustrations for scientific textbooks about ocean life. You could definitely do that, I said, realizing that I rarely had conversations like this with my sister. Between my college applications, part-time job, and social life, I hadn't been paying much attention to Emily's dreams and interests. A pang of guilt hit me as I wondered what else I had missed. Our creation was starting to take shape when my phone rang. It was my friend Jake, asking if I wanted to go to the movies that night, as we had loosely planned earlier in the week. Sorry, I can't make it, I told him. Glancing at Emily, who was carefully placing small shells she had collected from our summer vacation into the diorama. I'm helping my sister with a school project. Since when do you skip movies to help with homework? Jake sounded surprised. Since now, I guess, I replied. I'll catch you later. Emily looked up when I ended the call. Was that Jake? You can go to the movies if you want. I can finish this part myself. Nah, this is more fun, I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. Besides, we still need to work on your written report after we finish the model. She smiled gratefully, then returned to her meticulous shell arrangement. We continued working, chatting, about school friends and random topics that popped into Emily's ever-active mind. Do you think fish have dreams? She asked suddenly. What? I laughed, caught off guard by the question. Like, when they sleep, do they dream about swimming in different oceans or finding treasure or meeting famous fish? I considered the question seriously. I'm not sure if fish sleep the same way we do, but if they dream, I bet they dream about normal fish stuff, like finding food or avoiding predators. Emily frowned. That's boring. I think they dream about underwater adventures and fish parties? Fish parties? I couldn't help but laugh again. Yeah, with seaweed decorations and clamshell disco balls. She demonstrated by wiggling in a fish-like dance, which only made me laugh harder. Our laughter was interrupted by a loud crash as the model slipped from the edge of the coffee table where we had placed it to dry. We both lunged for it, but we were too late. The ocean ecosystem landed upside down on the newspaper-covered floor. No! Emily cried, dropping to her knees beside the overturned model. Her voice cracked with emotion as she carefully lifted the box to assess the damage. My heart sank when I saw the destruction. Most of the clay figures had broken or flattened, and the blue water background was smudged and torn in places. Emily's carefully crafted anglerfish had broken in half. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. It's ruined, she whispered. All that work for nothing. I knelt beside her, examining the pieces. It's not completely ruined, I tried to reassure her. We can fix it. She shook her head. We don't have time. It took us hours to get this far, and it's already getting late. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'm going to fail this assignment. Hey, I said firmly, lifting her chin so she would look at me. We are not giving up. Remember what Mom always says. When something breaks, we build it better than before. She finished reluctantly. Exactly. And that's what we're going to do. I stood up and offered her my hand. She hesitated before taking it and allowing me to pull her to her feet. But how? She asked, wiping away her tears. We don't have enough materials left. I thought for a moment, then had an idea. We don't need to recreate exactly what we had before. We can try a different approach. I picked up the damaged model. What if instead of showing the whole ecosystem, we show a cross-section? Like a slice of the ocean from the surface all the way down to the deep sea? Emily considered this, her creative mind already starting to work again. With different zones showing how light decreases with depth? Yes, and we could focus on showing how animals adapt to the changing conditions, rather than trying to recreate the entire coral reef. A small smile began to form on her face. That's actually better for explaining ecosystems. It shows the relationships more clearly. Exactly, I said, relieved to see her enthusiasm returning. And we still have enough clay and paint to make it work. We quickly developed a new plan, salvaging what we could from the original model and repurposing other materials. Emily's knowledge of ocean zones proved invaluable. As we recreated our ecosystem with a more scientific approach, I was genuinely impressed by how much she knew about marine life and ocean depths. How do you know all this stuff? I asked as she explained the difference between the twilight zone and the midnight zone of the ocean. She shrugged. I watch a lot of documentaries. Mom says I'm allowed to watch as many as I want because they're educational. Well, it's paying off, I said. You're going to have the best ecosystem project in your class. The new model took shape more quickly than the first, partly because we had learned from our mistakes, and partly because we were working with greater determination. We moved it to the dining table, which was more stable than the coffee table, and continued working well into the evening. Mom returned home to find us surrounded by craft supplies, paint smudged on our faces and glitter somehow in our hair. Instead of being upset about the mess, she seemed pleased to see us working together. What's all this? She asked, setting down her bags. Emily launched into an excited explanation of the project while I continued adding final touches to the model. Mom listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest. It looks incredible, she said when Emily finished her explanation. Both the model and the fact that you two haven't fought once today. It's a miracle. Very funny, Mom, I said, rolling my eyes, but I couldn't help smiling. I'm going to make dinner, she announced. You two finish up and then clear this mess before we eat. With the model nearly complete, we turned our attention to the written report. We moved our operation to the kitchen table so we could work while Mom prepared dinner. I helped Emily organize her research and taught her how to structure an informative essay. Start with an introduction that explains what an ecosystem is and why oceans are important, I advised. Then have separate paragraphs for each zone of the ocean, describing the conditions and the adaptations of the creatures that live there. Emily nodded, typing quickly on her laptop. She had always been a good writer when she could focus long enough to put her thoughts on paper. I was there, mainly to help her stay on track and to answer questions about formatting and citations. "Do I need to cite where I learned about anglerfish?" she asked. "Yes, any information that isn't common knowledge should have a citation," I explained. "It shows your teacher that you did research and didn't just make things up." "But what if I did make things up?" she asked with a mischievous grin. "Then you'd be writing fiction, not a science report," I replied. "And you'd probably get a failing grade." She sighed dramatically. "Fine, I'll stick to the facts." By the time dinner was ready, Emily had completed a rough draft of her report. We took a break to eat, and Mom insisted that we talk about something other than homework for a while. Emily entertained us with stories from her school, particularly about her science teacher, who apparently had a collection of weird ties with animals on them. "Last week he wore one with frogs that actually croaked when you pressed them," she said, giggling. "And he let everyone in class press it once, but Joey pressed it 3 times and got detention." After dinner, we returned to the report. I read through what Emily had written, making suggestions for improvements and pointing out a few spelling errors. She made the changes quickly, eager to finish so she could add the final touches to her model. "How does this sound?" she asked, reading her conclusion aloud. "Ocean ecosystems are complex and fascinating. From the sunny surface waters to the dark depths, each zone supports unique life forms that have adapted to survive in their specific environment. By understanding these adaptations and the relationships between different organisms, we can better appreciate the importance of protecting our oceans for future generations." "That's perfect," I said, genuinely impressed. "You've really captured the main points of your project." She beamed with pride. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Sure you could have," I said. "You're the one who knows all about ocean zones and anglerfish. I just helped you organize your thoughts, and build the model, and drive me to buy supplies, and stop me from watching panda videos instead of working." I laughed. "Okay, maybe you needed a little help, but the ideas were all yours." We spent another hour perfecting the report and adding finishing touches to the model. Emily insisted on creating a detailed key that identified each organism in the model and explained its role in the ecosystem. By the time we finished, it was well past her usual bedtime, but the project was complete. "What do you think?" she asked, standing back to admire our work. The model showed a cross-section of the ocean, with the water becoming progressively darker blue as it descended. Different zones were clearly marked, and each contained appropriate marine life made from clay and other materials. The surface had small boats and sunlight, while the deepest part featured Emily's reconstructed anglerfish and other deep-sea creatures, now enhanced with even more detail than before. "I think it's amazing," I said truthfully. "Your teacher is going to be impressed." Emily looked at me with sincere gratitude. "Thank you, Alex, for giving up your whole Saturday to help me. I know you had other things you wanted to do." I ruffled her hair affectionately. "That's what big brothers are for. Besides, I actually had fun. Who knew homework could be entertaining?" She rolled her eyes. "Now you sound like Mom." "Take it back," I demanded in mock horror. She giggled and dashed away, and I chased her around the living room until Mom called out that it was time for Emily to go to bed. After careful instructions on how to safely transport the model to school on Monday, Emily gave me another hug before heading upstairs. "Night, Alex," she called from the stairs. "You're still the best big brother ever." Once she was gone, I returned to my room and picked up my novel, but after reading the same paragraph 3 times without absorbing any of it, I put it down again. My mind was still focused on ecosystems and ocean depths, and my sister's delighted face when we finally completed her project. I realized that I had learned as much from helping Emily as she had learned from me. Not just about oceans and ecosystems, but about patience, creativity, and the satisfaction that comes from helping someone else succeed. It had been years since I'd spent an entire day with my sister, and I was surprised by how much I had enjoyed it. On Monday evening, Emily burst into my room without knocking, as usual, waving a paper with a large A+ written on it. "I got the highest grade in the class," she exclaimed, bouncing on the balls of her feet. "Mrs. Wilson wants to put my model in the science fair display case." "That's awesome," I said, genuinely happy for her. "I told you it would be amazing." She said my report was exceptionally well organized and informative for a student my age. Emily continued, reading directly from the teacher's comments. "And that my model showed creativity and scientific understanding beyond grade level expectations. Well deserved," I said. "You worked hard on it." Emily sat on the edge of my bed. "Mrs. Wilson also asked if I had help," she admitted. "I told her my big brother helped me understand the concepts and showed me how to organize my ideas, but that all the work was mine." "That's exactly right," I confirmed. "You did the work. I was just your guide." She smiled. "Like a lighthouse helping ships navigate through dark waters?" I laughed at her ocean-themed metaphor. "Sure, something like that. Mrs. Wilson said that's the best kind of help. When someone teaches you how to do something instead of doing it for you." Emily looked thoughtful. "I think she's right. I actually remember everything we learned about ecosystems now, and I'm pretty sure I could write another report without help if I needed to." "That's what learning is all about," I said. "Next time you'll need less help. And eventually, you'll be helping someone else understand this stuff." Emily's eyes widened. "Maybe someday I'll help you with your homework." I chuckled. "Maybe you will." She stood up, straightening her glasses. "I should go start my math homework." "I don't need help with that yet." She paused at the door. "But if I do, you know where to find me," I said, smiling. After she left, I turned back to my college application essays that I had been working on. One of the prompts asked about a meaningful experience that had taught me something important. I had been struggling with it for weeks, trying to think of something profound and impressive to write about. Now, I knew exactly what to write. I began typing about a Saturday spent building an ocean ecosystem with my little sister, and how sometimes the most important lessons come from the people we least expect to be our teachers. I wrote about patience, perseverance, and the joy of helping others discover their potential. As the words flowed onto the page, I realized that by helping Emily with her homework, she had inadvertently helped me with mine. And beyond that, she had reminded me of something important that I had forgotten in my rush to grow up: the simple joy of creativity, curiosity, and spending time with family. When I finished my essay, I saved it and closed my laptop. Then I got up and walked to Emily's room, where I found her surrounded by math worksheets, her forehead creased in concentration. "Need any help?" I offered. She looked up, surprised. "I thought you were busy." "Never too busy for my favorite sister," I replied. "I'm your only sister," she pointed out. "Still my favorite," I insisted, sitting down beside her. "So, what are we working on today?" As I helped her understand fractions and decimals, I knew that this was just the beginning of many homework sessions to come. And surprisingly, I was looking forward to all of them. In helping Emily, I had discovered something valuable about myself. I enjoyed teaching, explaining complex ideas in simple terms, and seeing the moment when understanding dawned in someone else's eyes. Perhaps this experience would influence my future career choices, or perhaps it would simply make me a better brother and friend. Either way, it was a lesson worth learning. And it all started with a simple request for help with homework, a request that I almost refused, but thankfully didn't. Sometimes the most meaningful experiences come disguised as inconveniences, and the greatest gifts we can give are our time and attention. My weekend may not have gone as planned, but it had turned out better than I could have imagined. "Alex," Emily said, interrupting my thoughts, "I just realized something." "What's that?" I asked. "Helping each other is kind of like an ecosystem, too," she said thoughtfully. "We all have different strengths and weaknesses, and when we work together, everyone benefits, like symbiosis." I smiled at her insightful connection. "You're absolutely right, Em. And you know what? I think that's the most important lesson we learned this weekend." She nodded, satisfied with this conclusion, then turned back to her fractions. As I watched her work, I felt grateful for the homework assignment that had brought us closer together and taught us both so much more than just facts about ocean ecosystems. Sometimes the most valuable learning happens when we least expect it, like when we're simply trying to help a sibling with homework. Key vocabulary. Repeated throughout ecosystem. A community of living organisms interacting with each other and their physical environment. Assignment. A task given to someone, especially as part of their studies. Model. A three-dimensional representation of a person or thing, typically on a smaller scale. Diorama. A model representing a scene with three-dimensional figures. Bioluminescent. Producing and emitting light by a natural chemical reaction. Adaptation. The process of change by which an organism becomes better suited to its environment. Marine biologist. A scientist who studies organisms that live in the ocean. Research. The systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources to establish facts and reach conclusions. Citation. A reference to a published or unpublished source. Especially in a scholarly work. Anglerfish. A deep-sea fish with a luminous growth on its head that acts as a lure for prey. Ocean zones. Different layers of the ocean distinguished by depth, temperature, and light penetration. Coral reef. A. Ridge of rock in the sea formed by the growth and deposit of coral. Symbiosis. A close and long-term interaction between two different biological organisms. Perseverance. Persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. Did you enjoy this story-driven English adventure? If this tale of sibling bonding and unexpected learning made you smile, don't forget to hit that like button right now. Every like helps more English learners discover our stories. Have you ever helped someone with homework or a project? What? Did you learn from the experience? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I personally read every single one and love hearing from you. And if you're new here, don't miss out on our weekly stories that help you improve your English while being thoroughly entertained. Click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story-driven English adventure. Remember, the best way to learn English is through engaging stories that capture your imagination. So share this video with a friend who's learning English or anyone who appreciates a good tale about family bonds. Until our next story adventure, keep reading, keep listening, and keep growing your English skills.